Landlord refused to fix my apartment. So I made him lose $50,000. I'm a 28M renting what was advertised as a newly updated, modern, fully maintained one-bedroom, and for the first few weeks it seemed normal enough. But then everything slowly started falling apart, like the apartment was actively rotting from the inside. First it was a small leak in the bathroom ceiling. Then mold started showing up under the sink, spreading like it had been there long before I moved in. The stove randomly died one morning while I was cooking breakfast. A week later one of the outlets began sparking every time something was plugged into it, and I don't mean a tiny shock, I mean visible arcs of electricity. I documented every single issue with photos, videos, emails, timestamps, everything. And every time I sent something to my landlord, Jim, he sent back the exact same copy-pasted answer: "I'll take care of it." Except he never took care of anything. For 2 entire months, my apartment got progressively more hazardous. The bathroom leak grew so large that the ceiling started sagging. The mold under the sink multiplied, making the whole kitchen smell like mildew. 2 more outlets started buzzing. I couldn't use half my appliances without worrying the place would go up in flames. When I kept following up, he suddenly became passive-aggressive, telling me I was being dramatic, that other tenants aren't complaining, and that old buildings just have quirks. I told him a sparking outlet isn't a quirk, it's a fire hazard. He told me to stop threatening him when I mentioned code violations. The final straw was when I caught a drip of water from the bathroom ceiling turning brown. That meant the leak wasn't water, it was likely sewage runoff from the unit above me, or at the very least long-standing water damage that could collapse. I told him I was calling the city inspector. Instantly, his tone changed from dismissive to hostile. He said if I created problems he would consider my lease terminated for being a difficult tenant. That was the moment I realized this wasn't a lazy landlord, this was a slumlord banking on intimidation and tenant ignorance to save money. Unfortunately for him, I'm very organized, very patient, and very done. I reported everything. Not verbally, I filed an official, documented complaint with the city building department. When the inspector came, I walked him through every single problem, and he spotted issues even I hadn't noticed: improper electrical wiring, no GFCI outlets near water sources, crumbling foundation cracks, ventilation that didn't meet safety standards, structural warping in the bathroom ceiling that suggested years of water infiltration, and mold that required professional remediation. He took dozens of photos. He even said, "Yeah, most of this didn't happen recently." He's been avoiding repairs for a long time. 2 days later, my landlord called me screaming. The inspector had slapped him with 10 separate code violations, all carrying fines. He tried to blame me, saying I should have been patient. I calmly told him I had been patient for months. He hung up on me. But this story isn't over. When the city files major safety violations, they notify the property's insurance carrier. That triggered an insurance inspection. The insurance investigator asked for evidence, and I sent over everything: photos, videos, all the ignored requests, all the dates, the sparking outlet videos, the mold, everything I had ever documented. The investigator's reaction was immediate. He discovered the landlord had been lying on his insurance renewals, claiming the building was fully maintained, up to code, and recently inspected, all false. The investigator told me that multiple issues violated policy requirements and voided parts of the coverage. That's when the real fallout hit him. First, the city fines stacked up, thousands. Then the insurance company hit him with penalties and forced repairs. His premium skyrocketed. He was required to hire licensed contractors, not his unqualified handyman, to fix everything. The mold remediation team alone cost him nearly 10 grand. The electrical overhaul added thousands more. The structural repairs? Even worse. On top of that, the building had to temporarily rehouse affected tenants during repairs, all paid out of his pocket. And then, thanks to the uninhabitable conditions, the city forced him to reimburse me for several months of rent. All told, he was out roughly $50,000 in fines, repairs, penalties, labor, and reimbursements, all because he refused to fix a simple leak in the first place. The best part? When he came by one day, all defeated and wilted, he tried to guilt-trip me, saying, "You didn't have to go nuclear." I told him calmly that if he had fixed even one issue when I first asked, none of this would have happened. He tried to argue, but he had no ground left to stand on. I shut the door on him mid-sentence. Now the apartment is fully renovated, mold-free, updated, and safer than it's ever been, all on his dime. And he avoids me like I'm the Grim Reaper every time he steps foot on the property. When you refuse to fix your building, you pay for it. Sometimes literally.